Welcome to Storytimer. Donna Marie Lanier. Donna Marie Lanier was born Donna Marie Husband on March 11, 1956, in South Bend, Indiana, to Eloise and Joseph Husband. She grew up in South Bend and married a man whose last name was, of course, Lanier. I was unable, however, to find his full name. She was 28 in 1984. Her life had been a difficult one. Her mother had been killed in the years preceding, and the man suspected of that crime was later murdered as well. Donna and her children lost everything in a fire in 1979. They lost everything but their lives. Still, she kept going. Donna had 4 children. 3 were still living at home in 1984. It's not easy, of course, to make a living as a single mother. If your kids get sick, you have to be home with them. They never get sick all at the same time. It's just natural. Poor kids. Children, they have school breaks and snow days, but most jobs do not accommodate that for you. It's impossible to find a workplace that will be flexible like that. Sometimes you have to do what you have to do. If you've ever been poor, then you know. Minimum wage in Indiana in 1984 was $3.35 an hour. When I was a teenager in 1980, I think I worked in 1986, 87, 88. I made $3.15 an hour at a theme park. I got promoted. They were allowed to pay us less because we were teenagers, by the way. I was promoted and made $3.25 an hour. If I worked 60 hours a week, I could get a 2-week paycheck that was over $200 after taxes. I didn't have children then. I wasn't married. I wasn't anything. But imagine missing the daily lives of your kids, working 60 hours a week just to make enough for shelter and food, and you know, and you're only bringing home $400 a month, or somewhere around that amount of money. That's impossible. I don't care where you are. America, of course, we know is a very racist country. There's no denying that. And Donna Marie Lanier was a black woman. Her children were black. Um, there, one of the reasons, and just to illustrate the racism of the time, one of the reasons that my blog is almost all white victims is because the black victims did not even make it into the paper. My research relies largely on newspaper archives. It's very difficult to find an article about a black victim in the 60s and 70s that's even there, like it is even exists. A couple that I've found that are early like that, I'm considering those earlier times. A couple that I found had names that might have been interpreted as a white person's name, and I think that they made the paper initially because of that, because it was assumed that they were white, so let's put them in the paper, but the coverage falls off really quickly when I think the newspaper realizes, oh, this isn't a white victim. It's difficult, of course, to get ahead in the United States if you're not white. If you married young and you had children and you're the spouse who stuck around to raise the children, then you may find yourself making tough choices like Donna did. In order to survive and provide for her children, Donna was a sex worker. Let's think about that for a second. It's a flexible schedule and it pays more than $3.35 an hour. It can be dangerous because the men who engage sex workers can be very dangerous men. But if you need money and you need a flexible work schedule, that works around when the kids are sick and when they're home from school and when things need to happen, I mean, it's something that people turn to. Society sees sex workers as less important, and victim blaming in this realm is rampant. It's still rampant here as well. People tend to see if a sex worker gets murdered, they tend to go, well, what were they thinking? They shouldn't have been doing that. They tend to judge more. In true crime, you'll hear the term less dead, Less dead. So a sex worker or someone who is maybe involved in some other, illegal activities, their the attention focused on their investigation is generally not as, or has been in the past, not as diligent, not as much effort is put into those people, because society has tended to see them as less dead than, say, a white suburban victim. And we know this because the Green River Killer was able to get away with killing so many women largely because of victim blaming. His preferred victims were sex workers. Only when the public outrage started building and the press was covering the cases more diligently was a task force funded and developed, and Gary Ridgway was eventually caught. This blog will never shame victims. If something I do or say comes off as shaming a victim, please know that that wasn't my intent. I don't blame sex workers for doing the work they do. I know I would do whatever was necessary to take care of my children. And I think Donna Marie Lanier was very brave and very hardworking to be able to do what, she was taking care of business. She was doing what she had to do to take care of her children. 28-year-old Donna Marie Lanier was last seen at the corner of Broadway and Michigan Streets in South Bend in the early morning hours of May 20th, 1984. Roughly 12 hours later that same day, May 20th, 1984, she was found 1.5 miles west of North Liberty, Indiana, that's south of South Bend, in Potato Creek by two fishermen. She had been strangled and beaten. Her body was nude and her hands were tied behind her back with nylon hosiery. Investigators theorized she had been raped and murdered elsewhere and then taken to this area and thrown off the bridge and into the shallow water. Some of the newspaper articles around this case report that she was found east of North Liberty in Potato Creek State Park, but that is not what her death certificate says. Her death certificate says 1.5 miles west of North Liberty in the creek that's named Potato Creek under a bridge off Indiana 4, Route 4. This is a wooded area. There isn't a lot of room to pull over. The killer had to be fast and hope that someone didn't come along. If she was abducted in the early morning hours and found later that same morning, that same day, just, hours later, it's a short window of time. The road there is straight, and the killer would have been able to see oncoming traffic from a long way off as he was removing her body from his vehicle and putting it over the bridge side and into the creek. The corner of Broadway and Michigan Streets in South Bend is just like about any other street corner in any town. A few of the buildings nowadays are boarded up. It isn't a place that semi-trucks would necessarily drive, so keep that in mind. The perpetrator was most likely driving a regular car or truck. He would have looked nice enough, safe enough for Donna to go with him. That's one of the things about sex workers is they can kind of size up the men who are asking them for sex, and they can kind of make some judgments about, do I want to get in this guy's car or not? So let's think about that. This guy would have looked nice enough, safe enough for Donna to go with him. So who was he? Were there other attacks on sex workers in the area? I'm still investigating that. I haven't found a lot of information yet, but I'm going to keep looking. Was evidence saved in her case? Can it be examined now for DNA? I don't know, but hopefully it was. Hopefully evidence was saved in her case. Hopefully it can be looked into. Hopefully, there could be a break in the case going forward. Indiana, though, sadly, has a huge backlog of modern rape cases, just plain rape cases, in which rape kits are still not being processed. I believe they are second in the nation right now in 2024 for unprocessed rape kits. I think it numbers around 6,000 and something. Meanwhile, the states surrounding Indiana, Kentucky, Ohio, Illinois, Michigan, those states have zero unprocessed rape kits. They keep on it. They fund that and they keep on it, and they treat rape as a serious crime. But it looks like Indiana still isn't taking rape very seriously, and it's not treating it like a serious crime. There are a lot of 6,000 unprocessed rape kits means there are a lot of potential rapists out there who are just being left to go free and continue to rape again. We need to look at every rape and murder, in my opinion, very seriously. We can't let victim blaming or societal racism prevent us from investigating each murder thoroughly. We can potentially prevent more murders and more rapes if we do. Gary Ridgway, going back to the Green River Killer, Gary Ridgway had been interviewed by police as a suspect, but he was initially cleared. And then he went on to commit many more murders before he was ultimately caught. Of course, at the time that he was being interviewed, DNA evidence was not a thing yet. That was not able to be used. But keeping on top of the rape kits, processing those rape kits, I think that's extremely important. And I hope that Indiana will fund the processing of those rape kits and get that huge backlog, cleared, and hopefully take some rapists off the street. Who can we rule out here in Donna Lanier's case? Who are some of the Indiana's, rapists and murderers that we could rule out? Well, John T. Gibson Jr., he's already in jail in 1979 for the 1979 rape. Sorry, he's already in jail in 1984 at this time for the 1979 rape and strangling of Tara Meredith. He'll later be released, though, after serving his sentence, and he is free today. But he was not free in 1984 when Donna Marie Lanier was raped and murdered. Stephen Timothy Judy is already dead via the electric chair in 1984 for the rape and murder in 1979 of Terry Lee Chastain and the murders of her 3 children. Jeffrey Lynn Hand is already dead, so he can't be considered in the Donna Marie Lanier case. 1978 in January, he was killed amidst a shootout with police while he was attempting to abduct a woman in Kokomo, Indiana. David J. Roberts was a rapist and murderer, and he was in jail in 1984, so he can't be considered for the 1984 abduction of Donna Marie Lanier. He would escape custody in October of 1986 and be on the run for a couple of years until 1988. He was the first person captured because of the television show America's Most Wanted, hosted by John Walsh. The murderer of Donna Marie Lanier can't be Robert L. Avery Sr. He's still in jail at this time for the 1978 murder of Mandy Llewellyn. The state will release him early in 1998. He will almost immediately begin committing crimes again. He had attempted to abduct a woman at a cemetery, but bystanders would follow his car and save the woman, and then he was returned to jail. We know about many perpetrators that it cannot be. So who was it then? Someone picked up Donna Marie Lanier from South Bend in 1984, raped and murdered her, tied her hands, and dumped her body off a highway bridge into Potato Creek. If you have information about this murder, if you have suspicions about someone, you can Google Michiana Crime Stoppers. and submit an anonymous tip on the Michiana Crime Stoppers website. It's a little mix of Michigan and Indiana, Michiana. Or you can call the North Liberty Police Department. That phone number, if you have tips, that phone number is 574 656 4411. Donna Marie Lanier deserved to be able to raise her children and to live a full life, just like everybody deserves. You know, Donna Marie Lanier's family has waited a long time for answers and for justice in this case. So I'm hoping that someone, if you have information, will come forward. Rest in peace, Donna Marie Lanier.